My name is Abraham. I'm an educational consultant at Edwell Consulting, and this webinar is navigating your MPOWER loan application process. Like I said before, we're so happy to have you here. And during this webinar, I'll be putting you through the process of applying for your MPOWER loan. I want to quickly give a summary of what an MPOWER loan is like. So, when you are applying to travel abroad and you don't get enough scholarships, you need some funding to cover up your remaining costs, maybe your tuition costs, your living expenses, and your personal funds aren't enough. Even if they're enough, but you don't want to use it at that time because you don't want to just put everything at once into one place and then it's all gone. So there's the option of international student loan. That's where MPOWER comes in. So taking an MPOWER loan requires you applying to an MPOWER school. So what is an MPOWER school? An MPOWER school is a school that is partnered with MPOWER. And for you to know if you're applying to an MPOWER school, the best thing for you to do rather is to check if your school is an MPOWER school. So through that link I just went through, I'll be showing you how to check if your school is an MPOWER school. So here you just go to find my school. And so let's use, for example, Chicago Booth is there. So if you also apply to Chicago Booth, then you can just check it. Whatever school you're applying to, let's try Duke University is also there. UC Berkeley. Okay. All right. UC Berkeley is also there. However, so if you're applying to a school and you don't see the name there, then the school is not an MPOWER school. And then you can't secure an MPOWER loan applying to that school. So I'm going to use University of New Haven, for example. It's not there. So if you apply to University of New Haven, for example, it's not an MPOWER school, so you're not going to see it. You're not going to be able to get an MPOWER loan if you're applying to University of New Haven. All right. So going back to the slides. So when you want to start an MPOWER loan, so one crucial thing you need to do before taking any loan, whether it's even like a personal loan or a study loan, you need to actually make inquiries about the loan. So when I say inquiries, what do I mean? Things like, what's the interest rate? How am I going to repay this loan back? How much am I repaying? How much can I actually borrow from this loan organization? So in the case of MPOWER, the highest MPOWER gives for their loan is $100,000. That's the highest you can request for, and that's the highest you can actually get. Whether you're applying for a 1-year program or a 2-year program, whether you're applying for a master's program or a PhD program. If you're applying for a PhD program, you need to apply for this loan in your last years of your study or your last year of your study. Or for example, if you're applying for an undergraduate program, you can only apply for this loan in the last 2 years or last year of your study, right? Because the loan is only given for 1 or 2 years, just or for a particular semester. So when it comes to the interest rates, so MPOWER interest rates varies from 15% to 17%. So what I said varies because it depends on your risk assessment after completing your loan application. So by the time you finish your loan application, the system actually processes your profile to see how you are eligible for the loan, to assess you for the risk, whether you're a low-risk applicant or you're a high-risk applicant. If you're a low-risk applicant, most likely your interest rate will fall in the lower range. But if you're a high-risk applicant, most likely your interest rates will be higher. So it doesn't mean it's going to be 70% exactly. It could be like a 15.99, it could be like a 16.5, but it's going to be higher than a 15, most likely. And then when it comes to repayments, typically MPOWER requires you to make the repayments of your interest during the course of your program. And a lot of people always ask me this question. They're always asking me, how can I repay when I'm not working? How am I going to repay? How am I going to do this? People always get worried when they realize that, yes, they are going to a new country for the first time. They most likely don't have a job. They don't even have the money to repay. But what I'm going to tell you now is the incentive of you repaying that loan, the interest rate rather, during the course of your study. So the first thing I'll say is it helps build your credit score. So your credit score is required. The credit score is what you use when you're trying to get a job, you're trying to get a mortgage in your house, buy a car, whatever you're doing in the US, you need a credit score. And the higher your credit score is, the better for you. The better it is, the easier for it is for you to get a house, get a car, to get a job, and all those things you require to actually have a stable life in the US. So when you're able to repay your interest loan, your interest payments during the course of your study, during the course of your program, you're able to build your credit score to a very good rate at the point of completion of your program. You have a good credit score to apply for jobs, to get a house, to get a car, to secure a mortgage. Then, for the principal payment kicks in 6 months after you graduate. So if you are graduating in July, or let's say June 2026, your principal payment will kick in. That should be December or January 20, let's say December 2026. And then that repayment is for the next 10 years. So those are the major things you need to know about getting an MPOWER loan. So now we're moving to the main part of this webinar, which is navigating the application itself, where I'll be taking you through our portal. So this link I'm using, this is Edwards Consulting Personalized MPOWER. This is Edward Consulting's Personalized MPOWER link, where you need to use this link to actually apply for an MPOWER loan if you want to be considered for the MPOWER Financing and Edward Consulting Scholarship. So I'll be clicking this link. All right. Hope everyone can still see my screen. So when you get here, what you see is start your application. So you click on start your application and it takes you here. So I'm just going to be filling in with a dummy person being someone that doesn't literally exist. I'm just going to be using a fake name, fake email address. So it doesn't register on our system because the person isn't actually taking an MPOWER loan, right? So our dummy person for today is going to be Ben Trevor. All right. All right. Ben, let's use Ben as the first name and then Trevor as the last name. All right. So email will be Ben Trevor 300 at gmail.com. Okay, so that's a valid email address. All right, great. So moving to the next part of the application. So here, when you get here, there are different options here, as you can see. So if you haven't applied to a school yet, this won't apply to you. I'm thinking about studying, then you can select this option. If you have applied but you haven't been accepted, that means you haven't gotten your admission letter, then you click this option. Then if you have accepted but you haven't enrolled, so enrollment, for example, is you've done the process of your I-20, or for Canada, you've been given the letter of the COE letter, that's confirmation of enrollment. So that's when you know, okay, you've been enrolled. And then if you have currently been enrolled, then you select, I'm currently enrolled. And if you've been enrolled but are transferring to another school, this option will apply to you. So typically speaking, I would always suggest selecting the option of I've been accepted to a school but haven't enrolled. And why I'm saying that is because it saves you the stress of back and forth when doing your MPOWER application. The best option I would typically suggest in this case is for you to select I've been accepted to a school but I haven't enrolled. So I was saying I've been accepted to a school but haven't enrolled because if you are still thinking about studying and you're applying to, for example, 3 different MPOWER schools, when you are doing your application, you need to select only one school that you are moving forward with. But if at the point of application or the point of you still thinking about the school you are going to, you can't select the school you're moving forward with because at that point you're not sure. You have not made your final decision on the school that is giving you, let's say, the most scholarships or the cheapest school or the location you are most favorable with. If you have applied but you haven't accepted, that's the case for you. It's only if you have applied to only one school and you are sure that, okay, I'm getting into this school, which is most times not the case because, again, you're not the one giving the admission. The admission is coming from the school. So you can't say for sure they are going to get the admission, right? So in that case, it's good to wait for your admission letter, figure out or finalize the school you are going with, and then you select the option of I've been accepted to the school but haven't enrolled. So I'll select that option and then click on next. So pick the school you attend. So let's use for Ben, let's use Chicago both in this case. Chicago. And yes, Chicago both. And the program. So next. Uh, okay. So pick the campus you attend. So for example now, if you are going to medical school, this is what you select. If it's a case where I just selected Chicago without the boot business school, then I have to select another campus. So let's assume that Ben Trevor is going for an MBA program. Please, if you are going for a master's in engineering or any other program, you select a master's program. And if you are going for PhD, same thing applies. Bachelor's, LLM, any program, just select the one that applies to you. So what is your expected graduation date? You can say July 2026, and the date your future classes will start. Let's say September 2024. All right. So I'm a citizen of, let's use Nigeria. So at this part, you need to consent to the privacy policy, of course. Then this is very important, please. These two boxes here for University of Chicago, or let's say you are going to Duke or any other school, when you see your school, you need to tick this box because when it gets to the point of your school rectifying that you're taking a loan, it could get difficult if this box is not ticked. Additionally, if you are applying to Edward Consulting, it's important for you to tick this box so we can also see your application on our end. And one thing about us seeing your application on our end is we are able to follow up with your application, fast track the application. Additionally, if you are applying for the MPOWER Financing and Edward Consulting Scholarship, we are also able to see you on our portal and verify that, of course, you used our link to apply for your MPOWER loan. All right, so agree and continue. All right, so I'm eligible to apply for this loan. If I selected the University of New Haven, I probably would not have seen it. So if I selected a school or a program that does not exist, then it should have shown me that I'm ineligible to apply. But based on the options I selected, I'm eligible to apply for the loan. All right, so I'm moving forward. Well, I said me, actually, Ben is eligible to apply for the loan. All right, so next. So additional email, enter a backup email address. All right, so I'm just going to use my official email. In case you want to take it, that's my official email. And this is my Abraham at Edward Consulting.org. All right. So country code, if you're from Ghana, 233, if you're from Nigeria, 234, whatever one that applies to you, just select it. You select it from the drop down, you don't just type it in. It's this doesn't really change anything in your application. There's no right or wrong answer, it's just your choice. So I could say no, and then I still accept. My date of birth, I could select, let me say 1997, March 15th. All right, great. So what's your permanent address? So this part is also very important. Please pay attention. When you're putting your permanent address, you need to put the address that aligns with the documents you submitted while doing your school application. For example, if the admission letter shows your home address, you need to put the same address that aligns with that. The address you use when you're submitting your school application needs to be the same with the address you put here. All right, so just by the way, our customized link has been dropped in the chat box in case you want to pick it up from there. Also, it will be sent to you after this webinar. So I was saying about the address, it needs to align with what is in your application. It also needs to align with, for example, your driver's license or any identity card that you are using. So let's say my address would be um plot. Okay, let's do last protect. People do this is not my address by the way. This is then we can use number 8 Ramilekun Street. All right. City we could do here because there's also a place for states where I need to put Lagos. All right, Nigeria, and then I'll put Lagos here. Great. So to the next part. All right, Rita, I've seen your question. I'll answer it at the end of this session. So do you have a mailing address in the United States? Please, even if you have someone in the United States, please select no. I had someone, or we had someone who selected yes, and this turned into an application that was prolongated for 3 months, something that should be about 2 weeks for processing. So please just select no, because then they're asking you for verification, and that's just a lot of back and forth that you don't want to deal with. So just select no. Thank you. Then moving forward, what is your immigration status in the United States? Unless any of these applies to you, should be non-citizen. Well, whatever your status is in the United States, if you do have one, then you should select it. It won't affect anything. So far, you have documents to prove that. So do you already have a visa? Sometimes people are applying and they've already secured a visa. They can select yes. In the case of you selecting yes, you need to identify the visa you have and then provide the social security number. But if I select no, I want to say that do you have social security number? I'll select no also because that doesn't apply to me. All right. So reference can be anybody. It can be your friend, it can be your sibling, your parents, it can be a colleague at work or your boss, it can be anybody. So I'm just going to use Tunde. Let me use Tunde Odos and relationship. This doesn't affect anything by the way. You can put friend and uh valid email. I've actually run out of emails. So let me use okay. Okay. Then country code for the reference will be, let's say 234. All right, so that's fine. Then you accept, next. So you're making progress. So now what's your primary major? So there's usually a drop down. Once you start typing your major, you're able to say. So if you are going for an MBA, you need to be very careful about this part because basically what they're asking here is your concentration. So if your MBA concentration is the general MBA, you can just select business administration and management. But whatever it is, let's say it is, let's try strategy. Yeah. So this is what applies to your joint operations and strategy. However, if you selected the masters at this point of the application, what you'll be seeing here will just be your major, and that's what you need to select. So it might not be the exact thing name your school calls it, but if it's closely related, it's most likely going to be it, and that's what you should select because it's not something you can type in yourself. You need to select it from the drop-down menu. All right. Are you getting a dual degree or dual major? If you are not, just select no. Is your major in the field of science, technology, engineering, or math? If it's not, just select no. But let's say my MBA is a STEM designated MBA, then I'll select yes. All right. Next, on campus. All right. So next. Okay. So now this is part for people who are also applying for an Empower loan and already are about to enter their second year. So if you're just about to enter your first year of the program, your program is 2 years, for example, and you're about to enter your first year, or even if it's 1 year, this is what you should select, first year graduates. If you are about entering your second year, select second year graduates. If you are doing like a PhD program, you get to your third year, you should select third year graduates. And if it's more than third year, you can select this one. You just need to know the one that applies to you. But if you are starting afresh, this is what you are selecting. All right, first year graduates. So full time, it has to be full time. Have you studied or received a degree from another US school? If you have, let's say your undergraduate degree was in the US, you can select yes and provide information for that later in the application. But if you haven't, you select no and you move on to the application. All right. So have you taken any of the following standardized tests? If you took GRE or GMAT, you indicate GRE or you indicate GMAT. There's no way you'd have taken both, right? That you submit both. So you can just, let's say GMAT. But if you did not take it, if you did not take it, but it was compulsory at your school, then you have to put haven't taken. But if it was waived for you, you need to put waived because there are different things. It's different if your school requires it, but then you waived the requirements for you, so you select waived. But if you haven't taken it at all, but it's compulsory or required at your school, you need to select haven't taken. So in this case, I'll just select waived. Or you know what? Let me select GRE because that's usually required. I'll select GRE. And for language test, same thing. A lot of times schools with English tests where I'm from an English speaking country or your previous degree was taught in English. If that was the case for you, just put waived and don't put haven't taken because it's always going to be required, right? It's not like you just take it and you still got admission. So it was waived for you. So that's what you should put in that case. So then I'll click on add test scores. So for the GRE, I will put here that I got a, let's say 160, and then 165 and next. So this is where you talk about your employment history. Most likely, if you are going for a graduate program, you most likely will be employed. But however, if you don't have any employment history, if you are fresh out from school and you're applying for an Empower loan, this doesn't have any effect on the application. So no need to be worried about, oh, if I don't have a job, will they still give me the loan? It doesn't have any effect on the application. So whatever applies to you, you just select it. In this case, let's go for currently employed. So I can show us how it's going to look like in that case. So currently employed and next. So how many years of total years of work experience do you have? Let me say 5 years of work experience in US. I'll put 0 for this one and also tick this box and say, I don't have any work experience in the US. So please note that it's asking you to share. Yeah, you're going to add a job, but only share jobs relevant to your major that you've had in the last 3 years. So for example, now, if you're applying for masters in an engineering, let's say software engineering, but your experience has been in business for the past 5 years and you've only had, let's say, 1 year work experience in that software engineering within the past 5 years. It's only that 1 year experience in software engineering you should post because that's what is relevant to the major you are going for. If your previous experience in the last 3 years to is not related to the program or the major you are going for, then you shouldn't include it. So in this case, I'll put here name of employer. Let's use Edward Consulting. Location, Nigeria. Length of employment. Please enter month. Please always make sure to read these faint writings here. It's very faint, but please make sure to read it. So let's say I've been employed at Edward Consulting for 2 years now. So that makes it 24 months. So I'm just going to put 24 months. So you have to calculate your experience in months. And then you address whether it was full-time or part-time. And my income in dollars, the income they're asking for here is your annual income, not your monthly income. So you need to convert your income to dollars if you're not earning in dollars. And when you've converted it, then you can now put the conversion in. So let's say in my case, I earn $60,000 from Edward Consulting annually. Then next. Right, so we made progress, it's saved. Looks good. I don't have any other jobs to ask. So this is only if you don't have any other job. But if you have any other job, because if you notice, I put that I was working at Edward Consulting for the past 2 years. Not and they are asking for 3 years. So I'm putting that because my only work experience is for my only relevant work experience rather to my major is for 2 years. But in that case, I don't have any job to add. So I'm going to click on I don't have any other jobs to add. So here, do you have a future job offer? If your future job offer is from your company here in Nigeria where they've assured you a promotion upon completing your program, that's really good. But however, to avoid back and forth, I would suggest just clicking no, I don't have a future job offer. And I'm saying this based on experience of people putting they have a job offer or they have an internship offer. Because then MPOWER start reaching out to the company. It's a bit of a back and it's not a bit of a back and forth actually. It's a lot of a back and forth process. The application is going to take longer than expected unless you have a company in the US ready to provide those documentations for you, then that's fine. But you know how things can be in Nigeria sometimes. It can take long. And I'm saying this based on experience. So it's just best to put, no, I don't have a future job offer. So I'm seeing people raising their hands and asking questions. I'll actually address all the questions at the end of the session. So we are not breaking the session gradually because of questions. Okay, thank you. All right. So moving on to the next page. So total it's estimated cost for 1 year. So here you enter your tuition cost, you enter your cost of living, additional cost, health insurance cost. So most likely when you have been given admission, schools usually have the cost calculated on their websites. I always advise, or it's your best interest to actually go to the website. It's actually best to go to the website, look at the cost in particular that your school is calling, and then put it the way it is from your school's website. For this one, I'm just going to assume the cost because, again, this is not a real application. So let's take, for example, Ben's tuition cost for 1 year, by the way. This is for 1 year. So if it's your total cost is 120,000, don't put 120,000, just you can put 60,000 because you're asking for 1 year. And then let's say cost of living for 1 year also, let's say $10,000. Everything is in US dollars, by the way. So if you're applying to a Canadian school, you should also convert this to US dollars before putting in these figures. It's very important. So it doesn't cause miscalculation when the system is calculating your cost and your own funds. That's your personal funding. So entering additional costs could be like books, supplies. Let's say that one, let's put 2,000, and then health insurance. Let's assume it's $500. All right, so this is my cost for 1 year. So there are times when once you put these figures, it's very possible that the system does not get the exact calculation of the figures you put. And that's because the algorithm on MPOWER's portal is different from the algorithm, from the calculation your school is using. So when you see that happening, just ignore it. It's still correct. Just ignore it and move on to the next part of the application. It doesn't happen all the time, but it could happen sometimes. So just be sure to not panic when you see that. All right, great. So see my total cost of attendance, and I show you 125, but the total I put there for 1 year is more than this. All right. So moving forward, do you have any scholarships or grants? If you don't have any scholarship, you can put no. But if you do, let's say Ben has scholarship, then put yes, whether it's from school, government, other. So let's say Ben got a $100,000 scholarship from Chicago Booth. So he's going to put that here and put his $100,000. Yeah. All right. So please note this part. You are putting for 2 years. So the former page was for 1 year, but this one is for 2 years. So don't put 50,000 if you got a $100,000 scholarship. And if you got a different scholarship, you can always add for the different scholarship, meaning that you got an external scholarship in addition to the scholarship your school gave to you. So funding types, so do you have any additional scholarship or grants to enter? In my case, I'll put no. And then, do you have any sponsor funding? There's nobody sponsoring Ben, so I'll just going to put no. If you do have a sponsor funding you, it's fine to put yes. Although the person has to provide, or you have to provide proof of funding. Proof of funding meaning the bank statement, and the person needs to write a statement or a statement for you rectifying that their funds are being used for your school application process. So do you have any personal savings or earnings? This does not strongly affect the application. Why I use the word strongly? Because if, for example, in this case now, Ben has a $100,000 scholarship out of that 125 that MPOWER has calculated. So his remaining cost is $25,000. In that case, MPOWER is most likely going to see him as a low-risk applicant because he already has some funding he wants and doesn't need much. Highest is going to need like $30,000 for his loan. But if you have personal savings and you don't get as much scholarships or you don't get scholarships at all, it's in your best interest to actually have personal savings, whether it's investment or checking, whatever it is that you are indicating, it's good to have it. And what I'm saying is your best interest is because when you're applying for a loan, regardless of it being empowered, they always prefer people that can show they have some sort of funding to also support themselves and not you solely relying on that loan. Because you showing that you have some sort of funding gives them the encouragement that you're able to repay back their loan at the given time and date. So it's always best to indicate personal savings, especially when you don't have any other source of funding. However, this doesn't mean that if you don't have personal savings or you don't have scholarships, your loan will be denied. No, it wouldn't. It's just most likely your interest rate could just be higher because you don't have any substantial funding to indicate from your end. All right. So in this case, let me just use savings for Ben and amounts. So whatever you are showing as personal funding, you will need to indicate, you need to provide evidence. For example, a bank statement, whatever documents you need to show. So let's say my personal savings is $2,000. So I'm adding funding now. So I've already indicated one, but they are asking it again. If you see this again, no need to click yes and add another one. You can just click no, and then it's going to take you back. Any friends or family members providing funds. If you actually do have, indicate yes, but again, they will need to show proof of this. So whatever you're putting, you need to show proof. But in this case, I don't have family, friends providing funds for me, so I'm just going to, I'll go back. But I wanted you guys to see how that part looks like. All right. So no. Have you paid in advance for the program you're applying for? So it's very possible that before you're applying for this loan, you have already paid your deposits. In that case, please indicate yes. And let's say your deposit is $500, indicate. So is this loan for a past due balance? So past due balance meaning that you took a loan before and then you are owing, or you're owing your tuition fee and the due date is passed and you want to take this loan to pay it. Most likely that would not be the case. So it's just best to select no. But if that's the case, please you have to indicate it because they will have the records when they are reaching out to your school. So will you be using any non-Empower student loan to fund this program? What this also means is that if, for example, you are taking $20,000 from Empower, and then you are also taking another $20,000 from another loan organization, you need to indicate yes. And when you indicate yes, at the end of your application, you need to provide documentation to show the non um the non-empowered loan you are using. So you provide all the information they need, interest rates, loan term, all this information if you are using another loan except from Empower. But if you are not, you just need to select no. So for this one, I selected yes. I put 500. Okay. All right, so save and continue. All right, so my financial plan has been calculated. This financial aspect is very important in the application. If you miscalculate things or if you put the wrong figures, the application can be denied because if the system calculates it wrongly and sees it like you are not worthy of a loan, it's going to automatically deny you once you click on submit. Because very likely, once you click submit, you are going to know if you are being approved or if the application will keep pending for additional review. So now my funding gap is 22,500. So I'm going to confirm and continue. So now this is where you put your requested loan amounts. So like I said at the start of this session, for those who weren't here, the highest Empower gives is 100,000. But now my difference is 22,500. I don't need 100,000. So maybe I'll put like, let's say 25,000. And then I'll just move on to, it's even stated you can request your full cost of attendance up to $100K. Do you have additional debt to enter? Okay, this is another very important part of the application. So if you have any additional debt, I would strongly advise that before you start an MPOWER application, you clear that debt, because at the end of your application, you'll be required to do a credit check. Credit check is to check your credit history for any past loan defaults. Anytime you borrowed money and you didn't pay back on time, that's what I mean. Or if you are still owing, or if you have a current loan that is still running, but even if it's not due, that's what the credit check is for. And then at the end of the credit check, they will send you your credit score. It's done through Nova Credit. So if you have an additional debt to enter, yes, include it. But if you actually do, I would suggest just holding on this application till you actually clear your debt. Then you can move forward. So when you click no, it just takes you to the accept. All right, so next. All right, so this is where you can review your application. It doesn't immediately submit by itself. So here you can click submit. Yeah, so this is the approval. So that's why I said upon submitting your application, this is how fast it is. It doesn't take time. So most likely, if the system considers you very worthy of a loan, you most likely will be approved upon submitting your application. So they approve it for up to $99,500, but I don't need that. This is what I requested for. So I'm just going to confirm requested amounts. So now this is another tricky part you need to pay attention for. If your What they're asking for here is, this is just for 1 year. So if your program is starting, let's say spring 2024, this is what you should select. But in this case, for example, if you are starting fall 2024, you should typically select this second option. But if you're applying for only one semester, if you are taking a loan for only one semester, let's say, for example, spring 2025, you should select this. Then they will give you the loan for just one semester, because here, they're only asking you for 1 year. Depending on what you select here, this is what they will send to your schools. Because, for example, now, if I only select, okay, spring 2024 has already kind of passed. Let's say I select spring 2025 now. When they are sending this, when they are sending the loan to my school for my school to rectify it, they are going to divide this 25,000 into two, right? That's making 12,500, because I'm only requesting for it for the first semester. But then if you select fall 2025 and spring 2025, then they'll send the full 25 to your school to give you for the 2 semesters, but it will still be broken down into 12,500, 12,500. But if you are selecting only one semester, then it most likely will be given to you only 12,500 in just one place. And then we need to reapply for another loan. I hope that's clear, but if it's not, you can drop your questions in the chat box. All right, so confirm. All right. So at the point of completing your application, you need to upload your passport. If you are still in the process of getting your passport, you know how Nigeria can be. Okay, Ben does not have a passport, he's not a real person. So I'll just confirm, and I'll click here. I don't have a passport because I don't have it. So I can then upload any of these identity documents. So it could be like my driver's license, any government ID I have, any other thing. But again, this is a dummy application, so there is no identity documents for that right now. So that's the end of the MPOWER of navigating your MPOWER application itself. That's what you need to do to apply.